I think I might sign up for your, what do you call it? The trauma food pantry stuff.
Oh, good. Yeah. It's really that
I'm not quite sure I understand it, but
it's a way of empathizing with people that have been through trauma.
okay.
And how to, how to approach them differently, how to greet them differently, how to work with them differently. So it's really amazing. Yeah, I enjoy that. So, yeah. And I've been through workshops with Leah's Pantry before, and they're very well done.
So this sort of another simulation like we did the poverty sim a while back, or?
No. It's just a Zoom workshop. But
Okay.
they'll give us questions and they'll put us into workrooms and do meet colleagues and do fun stuff with them. And
Okay.
yeah. It's interactive and good information. The one we went to last time was something about how food pantry is more than just giving out food, how the aesthetics, how people respond to tablecloths and baskets and as opposed to just putting it out there, in boxes. And people, will take food more readily, and there was all this. It was a great session. We were all kind of blown away.
I had not thought of before.
Yeah. So, all right. So I've got her set up with a wired version and a not wired version. You could take her pick.
I had one guy today at the food pantry that kind of broke me up.
Oh yeah.
His LUM database record had probably 8 people in the household, and he's now all by himself.
Oh.
After his mother died, his wife divorced him. 2 of his kids have died.
You want me to let them in at 4 or now?
Now it's fine.
Okay. I have to get this thing. You're welcome. Grab it.
Oh, admit. Already admitting people.
Anything I can do to help?
No. I was just in charge of this, and it's working. Jen, can you hear us?
Yes.
Awesome. How are you?
I'm well. How are you doing?
Good. Hey, I sent you an email a while back. The poverty simulation that we did in the gym there.
I'm not at Central anymore.
Oh no.
Yes.
I lost one of my favorite travel mugs.
Oh no. Actually, we kept it.
It's a good one. It's got Mickey Mouse playing in a Yankees uniform, which are 2 of my favorite things in the world.
I think it's somewhere in a cabinet.
Is it really?
Yes, because we didn't know who to give it to.
Oh, okay. That's wonderful.
So if you stop by on actually Wednesday mornings, Kathy is there and she could be the most helpful. It's in a cabinet somewhere, I'm 90% sure.
Awesome. You are the best.
How are you?
You are the best. Thank you. All right.
Hi, Joe. Sure, nice to meet you. I think I've seen you, but my ability for retaining names and faces.
So Al picks up whoever's talking wherever.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So
Perfect.
it doesn't
Okay.
matter. Wherever is comfortable for you. I mean, if you want, do you want something for notes?
Right, the podium.
Okay.
I like that.
Recognize camera.
Make y'all official.
You want me to stand over there?
I mean,
for you?
I don't, like I said, this will pick you up wherever you are, so.
This is if you want that to be clear, this would be a space, and you'd have a mouse and a keyboard if you needed to do
I
anything.
don't need to do that. I have a
And you could
one-page
mouse and
handout.
keyboard.
Yeah, I don't know that we really
I
need
make it
it.
easy.
Okay,
Did you bring it?
Yes, I did.
Then I won't go. I
I
sent
don't have
it,
enough.
Good, how are you?
I sent some to the printer, but I didn't actually print them yet, so.
Okay, well, there you go. Whatever
Copies in
works.
the back of
Maybe I'll go
the
get
room.
some clipboards. So
Thank you.
Kimberly provided an outline, but let me get some clipboards in case you want to actually like have a circular file.
it was working, but now it's not, so give me a minute. You're gonna be showing anything on here? Oh, okay, good.
I made it simple. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna be like overzealous here.
Yeah.
Hi, Joe, how are you?
I'm good.
All right, pretty good, yeah.
Hello.
Jen, do you see anything now? Do you hear anything now? Oh.
My screen is like the owl version of the room.
Oh, okay, I can't.
So Kimberly is very, very tiny at the top. Hi, Kimberly.
Hi.
And now the room view is getting bigger.
You're good.
Yes, hello.
Oh, I don't have a pen here.
Now
trying to
Kimberly
get
has her own view. Yeah, that's better. Better view of Kimberly.
I'm trying to get you up, and I can't get
Oh, I
you
can't
to
reach
show.
that. The pens, yeah. Thank you.
There you go. We'll just short to the other short one.
Ah, when I go to full
Anybody else?
screen, you go away. Okay, won't be able to do that.
Hi.
You want a clipboard? Want me to do that? I can do the handing out.
Just commenting, just security and comfort and.
Plain picture, what does that mean? Oh, yay, I did it, I figured it out.
Do you want a clipboard?
Oh, look at you.
Everybody cheer. Carl and Missy, can you hear us? All right,
Awesome. Thank you,
could someone speak so we can get a volume check in the room?
You mean our room?
No, them.
Come on, Carl, talk.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good day. Hello. Hi.
We got you. You might see admit come up, so you'll just have to
Oh,
let him
gotcha.
in. Yeah, everybody that's supposed to be here is here. But it
Okay.
should just pop up and just click admit.
Got it, okay. I can surely manage that.
I've got a wired and wireless, so you're all set.
All right, thank you. I
And this
appreciate
is how you turn it off.
that other people are better at tech than I am.
There's people behind me. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
How are you? Enjoy.
All right, thank you.
You can stay.
I know I could.
Here you go.
All right, Marilyn, you wanna introduce you?
Hi, thank you all for coming. Glad to see people here. I think we're all here because we're passionate about LUM. We want to participate, we want to use our gifts. And there's one piece of our responsibility, it's a fiduciary responsibility as a board member. And so sometimes that's confusing what that might mean. So we, the Finance Committee, we've been talking about this for nearly a year. Yeah, we should offer some training. We should have someone come in. So we've invited Kimberly Morissette to come and talk to us. And I've known Kimberly for 20 years and learned or more, and I've learned a lot from her. So this will be a good talk.
Right.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Well, thank you. I'm just glad to get out of the office today. I was stuck in IT meetings and all kinds of system integrations today, and I was like, oh, I have to go along. See you all. Well, thanks for letting me come and speak to you. I have been your auditor for several years, and that's really my role that I play with LUM as being your auditor, which when you get that report that says Huth Thompson, that's me and my team behind that. And you've done a very good job over the last couple of years of improving your control structures from where you were and kind of bringing it forward and having sound internal controls and a good opinion. So this just kind of dovetails into, being fiduciaries, being board members, being responsible for the organization. What I've present for a prayer for you is just a handout, just kind of what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to try to keep it simple, sweet. I don't like being long-winded, and I will leave time at the end for questions if you have those. I want to start with key roles of the board member. So when you're a board member, what are your roles? I sit on several boards. I sit on, oh, we got another person there. I sit on large boards. I sit on small boards. I also audit large clients, small clients. So what does it mean to have a fiduciary responsibility, as Marilyn has started to allude to? And each board member that's in this room, and those that aren't in the room or online, have a duty of fiduciary responsibility to the organization. And there's 3 duties basically that you have. You have a duty of care, duty of loyalty, and duty of obedience. Now, some of this gets into legal schmeagle, and I am not an attorney. Let me make that very clear. So I just try to make it very simple. There are legal obligations, and you have to serve in the best interest of the organization. Duty of care is when you exercise reasonable care in overseeing an organization's activities. That doesn't mean you get in the weeds, okay? You employ these great people here, Leanna and Wes, to basically be in the weeds, but you're staying informed of the overall picture of the organization. You're participating in meetings. I hope you all come to board meetings regularly. You review financial reports, big picture, I'm not saying in the weeds, and you ensure the organization's resources are used effectively based on those big picture reports. Then you have the duty of loyalty. And that you have to act in the best interest of the organization. Now, you hear about conflict of interest statements. So then I'm putting on my CPA hat, not the attorney hat, that talks about IRS and having conflicts of organization with board members, such as if you lease a building, which you don't, but if you leased a building and your board member was leasing it to you, that board member that's being the lessor, should refrain from that vote and put on their conflict of interest statement that I abstain from the vote because I have an actual conflict with the organization. So you have to make sure that you have the best interest of the organization at heart. Duty of obedience. And this is where it gets a little gray, because it says the organization should ensure that it complies with all laws and regulations. One of my questions on an audit to management is always, Wes, did you comply with all legal responsibilities and laws and regulations? Yes. And then I say, did you get any notices from the IRS? And not Wes, but some clients will say, oh yeah, I got one of those. Well, did you really comply with all laws and regulations? No, probably not. You as a board need to make sure that you're following your articles and bylaws. All right, that's a board responsibility. That's not Leanna saying, oh, by the way, we need to read those articles and bylaws. The board needs to make sure that they are up to date with whatever's in those articles and bylaws and change them if they're not. That's more of what a governance committee does, which is a subset of a board, to look over those articles and bylaws and make sure that your mission is being met. So there's one thing that will shut down, well, 2 things that will shut down an organization immediately. Public scrutiny, okay? If you have fraud, if it gets out in the paper, you're gonna be shut down and you're funded by contributions majority of. And number 2 is if you basically don't fulfill your mission. If you go off in left field and the IRS says, this is not what I give you exempt status for, that can shut down an organization too. So that's why you have good people like Leanna and our firm to make sure you're staying in compliance with the IRS side. But again, you as a board have a responsibility to make sure that big picture wise, you're doing the mission you sought out and told the IRS you were doing. So the duty of care, duty of loyalty, duty of obedience, and then you get into, well, what if we don't do those things? Okay, what if the board is not being careful? What if they're not doing their duties? They can be personally held liable by the IRS. There's something called private inurement. So the IRS says, if you're taking advantage of a nonprofit, guess what? We get to come after you. So you make sure things like you have directors and officers insurance, things of that nature to shield the board. But ultimately, you need to make sure that you are actually in compliance with a board member responsibility. Again, I've not seen in 25 years plus where the IRS has come after a board member personally, as far as in a nonprofit scape here. I do have to tell you a story that I do have an instance where a nonprofit was being taken advantage of and the FBI got involved. So that board member was trying, and he had a huge conflict, and the board should have really resounded with this conflict. He was making software that the nonprofit was using for their mission. Okay, it was all up to snuff with mission. But he also had about 15 different other entities scrambling around the US making software for education. And it got to be a major issue and it crossed state lines. And guess what? The FBI was involved. So board members can have side gigs going on where they should have disclosed some of these side gigs on conflict of interest statements. That's where the IRS really gets involved. So those basically are your fiduciary duties. Now, getting into more of governance and oversight when you talk about that. So I've named off some things, and these may be things that other people challenge. There may be more than this. I'm just covering a broad highlighted view. One thing the board has insight into is strategic planning. Okay, so every board, if you're on multiple boards, that's one thing you hear about all the time is strategic planning. The board works with the staff, okay, to develop and approve the organization's strategic plan. So it's normally you bring in speakers, or Wes and Leanna formulate, hey, this is what we think. There's subcommittees of the board on the strategic planning committee, and you come 3 to 5 to 7 years, all depending on your cycle of what that strategic plan looks like. That is part of the overall direction that gets approved by the board. So you're involved in that kind of governance and oversight. Financial oversight, that's my favorite. Financial oversight basically deals with, you normally have a finance committee, okay, that goes into the weeds more so of the organization, okay? So they're going to get basically the financial reports, and I just heard that you met before I got here. The finance committee is going to look at actual to budgeted. They're going to ask more detailed questions than usually a board would ask. They're going to approve overall budgets, as far as they're going to bring a budget to the board, and the overall budget will be approved, but line item by line item, that is not something the board has to get into the weeds on. And that is up to finance committee. They're going to monitor financial performance. We're going to talk about KPIs in a little bit here as far as what those are, just at a broad level, high level. The financial oversight at the board level would be safeguarding the organization's assets. So if there is a large shift in your mission, or a large type of entity, or a large type of financial issue going on, such as buying a new house, selling a new house, doing a new program that's going to expend X amount of dollars, Leanna's going to bring it to finance committee is going to bring it to the board, the board's going to have a final vote on it. That's kind of how that all transacts with the actual oversight. The board's also going to have executive oversight. So who hires and fires your executive director? That's the board, or at least the executive committee kind of brings their recommendations to the board on that. They're going to evaluate. There should be yearly evaluations of your CEO, Wes, and that is something that's an executive oversight of the board. You're going to also ensure, like I spoke before a little bit ago, about making sure you adhere to applicable laws. So if you hear, board members are kind of like auditors. They hear a lot of things, and they have to distinguish between fact and fiction, kind of like a parent of what they hear, and kind of come down the middle ground and make decisions according to what is right. That's where your ethical responsibilities kind of come into play with that. And then accountability. You as the board are going to hold management accountable for the plans you lay out, meaning strategic plans. Are they meeting the first year goals, second year goals strategically? That's what you're going to actually be assigned to as far as a goal. And then, a couple other things on that whole path of governance and oversight, resource development. So you may say, oh, that's up to Wes and his team, the actual development director, to do. You all play a role in that as the board. So you need to make sure that you supply your networks, because it's all about networking when you get to actual donations, of who your actual management, your actual resource developer can go after, I'll say that word after, and actually solicit donations from. I think the biggest thing a board member actually can do, as far as one of their key roles, is being an ambassador. Ambassador for the organization. You touch a ton of people, a ton of churches, okay? So are you being an ambassador for the organization? For every organization that you work for, you're ambassador for that organization just by default. Leanna's ambassador for LUM, whether she likes it or not. So you also are ambassadors continually for this organization because of the people that you reach and the networks you have. Building connections is probably the number one thing you can do as a board. That is very, very important with a nonprofit, whether that be community leaders, policymakers, local officials, etc. Grantors, that's huge in the nonprofit space. And then other roles that would be very important. Is it okay over there? Oh, okay. I was like, wait a minute,
Sorry.
let's stop.
I just heard a little bump here. It's
No,
one of
you're
our- It's
fine.
one of our finance team.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Gotta let them in. Yeah, there you go.
Okay,
There you go.
there we go.
Joel wants to come in.
Sorry, Joel.
There we go. You got it. Other roles, recruitment, okay, of new board members. The board has a responsibility to recruit new board members, identifying the skills that are needed, such as if you need new attorneys or accountants on the board or someone in HR.
Yes, we do.
There you go. No, I can't. I'm your auditor. I can't do that. That'd be an independence violation. You've got one right there.
Just kidding.
Another important role, I think, for the board is risk management. So if there are large issues that you have coverage for D&O, insurance policies, if you hear of things as you are weeding through what staff is telling you or what you hear in the public, are there other risk areas that you have to look at? I look at financial risk. So as an auditor, I'm looking at, okay, where are the risks to the financial statement? Okay, I'm not saying, oh, you have a risk in that HR area. I'm not an HR specialist. If it relates to numbers, I'll tell you have a risk. But again, then it's just up to my opinion whether you have a risk in an HR issue. You as a board member, because you each have a unique skill set, that is where you come into play as far as how you can identify risks. I tell my staff, we meet with Leanna and Wes for a planning meeting. After that planning meeting, I said, okay, what did you hear? What did you hear? And they'll start talking about little things and I'll say, you just identified a risk. And we do it every single audit, and every single year it's different because what the client's telling us is different every year. So you as board members, what you're hearing, it could be different every year. You could have been on this board for 15 years. There's always new risks. There's always new challenges. Okay, it's not the same old, okay? So those are some of the key areas between the fiduciary side and the governance of what I see as key board roles. Now you get into committees, all right? And this is where it can be challenging. Some boards go over the top and they have 100 different committees. Well, that doesn't work, okay? There's too many people, too many cooks in the kitchen kind of thing. You need working groups. You need working groups that address certain things, and it needs to have people in it that have those specialties or expertise or have a passion for it. So I named two. These are just the normal two that I see every single organization has. And the reason why they have these is because the IRS says, who's your president, treasurer, okay, vice president, and your secretary. Those people usually are in one of these two groups. So your finance committee, and that manages the financial oversight, budgeting, and the financial reporting in more so in the weeds than a board would ever get into. All right. So they are also the ones, if you don't have a separate audit committee, which most non-publicly traded organizations do not have a separate audit committee, that will also function as your audit committee. So that will review and approve the audit. If there's questions for the auditors, they may meet with the auditors. If there's internal control observations that come out of the audit, the finance committee is the one that's going to charge management with fix these or tell us what the issues are and come back to us in a report. Finance holds basically your accounting department accountable, okay? They will also do the budgeting. So budget to actual. The budget's obviously big picture approval comes to the board level. They go into the weeds. They go into actually, okay, why is this line item out of whack? Or why is this group, like grants, not in line with our budget? They will also normally see when they formulate the budget, Leanna will put payroll together, they will see the payroll budget. Obviously, the full board is not going through every single line item on payroll. They are actually doing big picture approval of here's our total. So they are really held accountable for the financial aspect of the organization as it includes both the numbers and the internal control aspect of the financials. Executive, They include officers, obviously, like I mentioned, and they have the power really to act on behalf of the board between the meetings. And that's normally defined in your bylaws. So standard bylaws always say that type of thing. Because God forbid the whole board shut down, you're gonna have a subset of people that can keep things running. So it's your president, it's your vice president, secretary, treasurer, sometimes is also an executive committee member. It all depends on how your bylaws and articles are formulated. But the executive committee can be the sounding board, honestly, for Wes and Leanna. A lot of times, that's where the position of Wes would communicate more frequently with that committee than maybe even the whole board. And they really have kind of that power to act on the organization's behalf. So those are two committees. Now you could have a development committee, you could have a governance committee, talking about nominating board members. You could have a marketing public relations committee. You can formulate as many committees as you want. Some of those committees don't actually have to have board members on them. It's always good to have at least one board member, but you could have an audit committee that would be separate from your finance committee that in the real world of publicly traded, those people have nothing to do with that organization. They're totally independent people. They're not on that board. So you can get the expertise sometimes by just having ad hoc committee members or things that people that are just served just to help out LUM, and they're not actually board members that serve on these committees. So keep that in mind, that you don't have unruly amounts of committees, but you have the required type of committees that can have the organization be sound and functional. So we talked about kind of the key roles with the board, okay? So let's talk about what the staff should be doing, because ultimately the staff are the one here on a daily basis doing everything to make this organization be successful. So you have the executive leadership. So it's the CEO, ED role, whatever you call it in your organization, highest ranking staff member, and here responsible for overseeing all of the aspects of the organization, including starting the strategic plan, making sure that that actually gets to a board level for approval, fundraising, program delivery, operations. He's kind of in charge of all the daily. Now, he obviously has people underneath him, as in any business that reports to the CEO type role. Programmatic, huge, okay? That's what this organization's mission is to help people, okay? So you've got programs, you've got initiatives, you've got different, what I call departments when we get down to actually the QuickBooks and the accounting side of it. They function the existing programs. They also look for new programs or new initiatives, all right? From planning to evaluation to making sure that you can connect the dots between IRS, mission approved, and what are you doing? Those are the programmatic people. They should manage their own budgets. They should supervise their staff. They should engage, with Wes and the leadership team. These could be social workers, counselors, caseworkers, your camp staff. I mean, everyone from A to Z that functions in any type of programmatic role. They could be outreach people. They could be people out in the community, just helping the community. Those are all your programmatic people that deliver that mission. Now you get into your development. That's another area of staff, okay? So your fundraising. And obviously Wes, Leanna to some degree too, is in play in this whole strategic area of development. This can be grant writing. This can be trying to seek out those new grants, seek out those new funders. Major gifts. Wes is going to be cultivating normally. That position cultivates the larger gifts and really brings those gifts into fruition. Long-term strategy with gifts. We have, donor advised funds, anywhere from, charitable gift annuities. You could name it, kind of like the community foundation role. A lot of people serve in their capacity in that leadership role to cultivate those relationships and build those long-term sustaining gifts. So development is another key area or key role of staffs. And then the administration, of course, my favorite, the financial, the accounting side comes under the administration, and managing the budgets, the financial reporting, the day-to-day. How does cash get received when it comes in the door? How do checks get received when they're in the mail? How do the online contributions? You would be surprised if you got into the nitty-gritty how many transaction cycles are going on in one given swoop in LUM, okay? It's not just, well, I have one deposit today and it's only $5. That's not what's going on. And Leanna does a great job with her staff of being a very small staff that processes a lot as far as contributions are concerned. Your HR wing, okay? Your HR of how you onboard new employees. You as a board aren't doing that. It's your actual staff people that are actually doing that here at LUM, knowing the right fit, knowing the right person, looking at their compensation, their packages, ensuring compliance with labor laws. That's a bigger one. 25 years ago when I started CPA world, oh yeah, the employees are great. Don't worry about the employees. They'll be fine. Well, now we're all sue happy. So everyone has to make sure labor laws are in check, even with little nonprofits. Okay. It happens in very small nonprofits. Marketing, communications, that's another aspect. In today's world where we live by our phones, okay, and where how many times can you get your social media out there? I do CFO work for a large client 1 day a week. I am not anywhere in Lafayette, and I'm up north running their business. The amount of marketing meetings I sit through as being their contract CFO, I'm like, I do not need to be here for this, but it is at the forefront of everything to make their businesses grow. So it's really important, the public relations, the events, things that are happening, getting your name out there. Can you walk down the street and people know who LUM are? I would say when I first started auditing you, 3-4 years ago, 5 years ago, maybe now, no one knew who LUM was. I will tell you, people are like, who? My staff are like, where are we going? You've done a lot over the last couple of years to really get your name out there. And that is by management, the key areas of the staff really getting the name out and actually hyping up the social media. That's really what actually increases that. And you as a board getting out there and being ambassadors and saying, I'm on the LUM board. So that's important. And then, volunteers. Who manages the volunteers? You as a board you are volunteers. Who manages you? It's the staff. I'm on Franciscan's Foundation board, and they rely wholeheartedly, I will tell you, except for 1 or 2 paid staff people, on us volunteers. So we actually have to get out there and we have to run the 5K for Franciscan and all those type of things. It's fun, but it's a lot of work. So you as a board are really privileged to have a fully functioning staff and not be, where there's 1 or 2 people running everything. So those are some of the roles that are key areas or key staff roles that I see. Now we get into, okay, what do we look at as a board? All right. This is one where you can have 50 different opinions in a room of this size even. But what I look at is, from my standpoint, nonprofit metrics. Okay, IRS says here's a tax return, right? So a lot of times, and there's been a lot of studies done on the fact that, well, you should be able to take 1990, which is the IRS tax form, and compare it to another one, and they should be comparable. Okay, they should be the same. Oh, no, you can't do that. So don't even try. Overhead ratios. Your overhead ratio is very different than, say, United Ways or YWCA. Everybody's overhead ratio is different. You can't just pull off GuideStar because your 990 is on GuideStar public record. It is put there by the IRS. It is not put there by me. Everyone's is out there. If you are a 501c3 organization, you cannot pull one organization and say we are the same. So get that out of your head, because a lot of board members think that. You can't do that. But what you have to do is you have to establish your own metrics that you want to be held accountable to. There are so many resources for metrics for a nonprofit. First, you have comparable data. So comparing yourself year over year, I do a lot of 5-year trends with organizations. COVID kind of screwed up my 5-year trends a little bit because, what happened 5 years ago was never happened before kind of concept. I had organizations that had millions of dollars coming in that they didn't know how to get out fast enough. I had organizations shutting down because they didn't have the resources. It was all over the board. But in general, I look at 5-year trends. That's the first thing. So doing statistics, looking at, what's our payroll trend? That's our largest expense. What does it do? What is our contributions done? Those are some trends that we look at. When I get in, say, key performance indicators, a lot of people say that's for-profit land. It actually is for nonprofits too. First and foremost, KPIs or key performance indicators. You can look at how many donors clicked on your website as a key performance indicator. How many donors gave us more than $5 as a key performance indicator. You can get gift amounts, donor growth year over year, donor retention. What do you want to look at? You can look at cash position and say, well, how much cash, how liquid are we? Your audited financial statements has a liquidity footnote in it. Have you looked at that? Does it look like it's liquid? Have you looked over that over a 5-year period? So you have to develop KPIs that are unique to your organization. Now, if you had a loan, the banker would be saying, give me ratios, give me current assets over current liabilities, your current ratios, give me your debt to equity ratios. They would be giving you all kinds of ratios, which is also a KPI indicator. But for nonprofits that don't have debt or substantial debt where they're just ebbing and flowing off a line of credit kind of concept, you have to establish your own KPIs. Now, dashboards are a great way to give a board a snapshot of what's going on inside the organization. The finance committee is usually the one that actually dictates, this is what we think the board needs to see as far as big picture and what it doesn't need to see. Boards aren't going to get in the weeds. You don't have time to get in the weeds. If you spend a whole board meeting sitting there line by line going through every single aspect of the financial statement, grief, I think you'd put your board members to sleep, number one. And number two, no one wants to get that detailed. You want high level, okay? High level from that organization. So key performance indicators, just know your finance committee is really the one that should be the one looking at this. I've even told finance committees, have a meeting just on KPIs. What do you want to see? You've got a variety of people on a finance committee. What do they want to see? And then bring that to the board and say, hey, we're trying something new. I love to see when finance committees or other committees design new techniques or new things to give board a snapshot. We all are very, very busy. You are all volunteering to this organization. You can't spend the amount of time to be in the weeds. You need the big picture. Budgets are another way, extremely helpful way to keep the organization in check, because you as the board approve those budgets at high level, okay? The finance committee obviously is down more in the weeds, and then Leanna and Wes are really the ones solely responsible for, okay, are we meeting those targets or are we not? And why are we not? And reporting that back up that chain. If people just design a budget and then they don't do anything with it, I have boards that do that. I can't stand it, because it's like, why did you put time and effort into this unless you're going to hold people accountable? IRS terms love the term transparency and accountability. And it goes throughout the whole organization saying that we are transparent, because remember, you are a public organization where the IRS could say, and they ask on the tax return, how do you give your information out? Is it on a website? Can people walk in the door? It's on GuideStar. They can see your financials. So it's very important to be transparent and accountable. And that's really how your budget really shows transparency and accountability. And then my favorite nonprofit metric, because this is one thing I want everyone to realize, donor restricted funds. It will shut you down if you use donor restricted funds for non-intended purposes. I've seen it. I've had it happen. I've qualified opinions for it on audits, because sometimes organizations get into trouble and they think, oh, we have this restricted money over here. Well, let's just use it and we'll pay it back. I've had organizations where they have done some shenanigans, I'll tell you, and taken money out of endowments, give the endowment back title to land we have, that they then cross-collateralized with bank debt, and the bank said, bye-bye land. And all that donor restricted money was not backed with a security, okay? So people can get very creative in times of trouble, I'll tell you. That's where make sure you know what your restricted funds are, which Leanna does record in QuickBooks. She knows what those balances are. Finance committee should be seeing, here's a list of all our restrictions, and then here is the cash or the assets that back that actual restriction. That is one KPI that is more so of a, hey, finance committee, do you know what your restrictions are and are they fully funded? Board level, on dashboards, you can put total restrictions, total cash. Oh, you can see that basically those restrictions are covered by cash. We're fine. That's big picture what the board should actually be asking the question from that perspective. And that's something you can easily put on your dashboard. I like numbers, as you can tell. I like to see, to the nth degree in the pennies. Boards don't have time to mess with the pennies. You need to see pie charts. You need to see just real charts, strategy charts, basically of, hey, here's where we're at yesterday, here's where we're at the next day kind of concept from year to year. So, but board restricted funds, that's my big one, because nonprofits, God love them, but they get into trouble when they mess with those restrictions. So these are some of the things that I wanted you to just be aware of, that Leanna asked me to kind of address with you, just to give you a broad level. This is what basically a board is all about. And some of you I can see shaking your head, you're on other boards, so you've heard this probably 100 times already. So now I'll take some time for questions. Any questions, comments?
when you look at the time you've spent working with LUM, is there anything that pops out as either interesting or problematic?
I think the type of your funding, because you are almost 100% funded by contributions, will always be a risk or a problematic issue. You don't rely on grants. You rely on the good-heartedness of everyone.
Right.
So it's hard because it's not like you're running a campaign. So take a United Way, for instance. They run a campaign. Everyone knows that campaign cycle. They know what it's for. Every year it's the same thing, okay? You have the same programs, but how do you get those funds to cover those programs and remain consistent and grow? That's your risk area, okay? As far as controls, as far as where you've been in the past or when I started with you, they have greatly improved. Tremendously. I mean, they really have. I think it was a learning curve because how things were done before and what they need to be done. I'm working with a church right now. I was writing a report today. I'm working with a church that, God love them. They are wonderful people. They are volunteers, but trust, but verify. And they didn't understand that, the volunteer that comes in to write the checks, who also approves the bills and write the checks and signs and has full check writing authority, that wasn't a good thing. And it took me a hot minute to convince them that it was not a good thing, but she's a volunteer. I don't care. She has access to do everything. You don't have that here. But when I started, it was getting that way. So things have really grown as far as a control aspect. And you have to keep in mind, God love the people that were here in the past. The past is a time of the past, and the electronic age that we are in has substantially changed the whole environment. So it was almost like you needed an overhaul of the control systems, and that's really what has happened over the last couple of years. Yes, sir.
I've been on the board almost 3 years now, and I know there are restricted funds.
Mhm.
Should I know how many different pockets there are and what the dollar amounts are in each of those and how they've grown or shrunk? Or is that the kind of thing that's too much in the weeds?
Finance committee should be aware. Finance committee obtain your financial reports, and they see on your balance sheet, they will see the restrictions on it. Those restrictions are all listed by fund, what they are on the dollar amount. From a board perspective, your finance committee is the one that really should be asking those type of questions.
Okay.
The board is just gonna see, here's a total number. This is normally what's done, total number of restrictions, and our cash covers that. And then if there's any issue with those, the finance committee would be the one to bring those to the board's attention. Leanne has done a lot of work in the last 3 years roughly of cleaning up the restricted funds to make sure that we knew what they were, because when I started auditing, I was like, what is this? Where's the documentation? Why do we have so many funds? What is this, etc.? There's been a lot of work done on your restricted funds. And really when you say, we have a lot of restricted monies, use the restricted monies. Don't let it sit there. Because then, God forbid, down the road, you have that money sitting there and you get into financial hardship. Well, you should have used that restricted money as long as it was for the specific program it was supposed to be for. Use it up. I'm not a big proponent of restricted funds. I want unrestricted, okay? I want unrestricted to use whatever that the organization needs to use it for. But donors like the pet projects. Donors like to do those type of things.
That was a point made to the board 15 or 20 years ago, was try and discourage donors from starting only from restricted funds.
Mm-hmm.
It gave the organization a lot more flexibility when it was all just in a general fund.
I had one organization that was very clever when I picked them up years ago, and I do all their bookkeeping, so I'm a lot of them. I do all their bookkeeping. And I said to them, you have tons of money coming on your website, because they use the website. Donors go in and they, collect off their credit cards, etc. And I said, how do you track the restrictions? Like, there'd be gazillion restrictions. She goes, oh, no, let me show you. Their website, there is one box that says unrestricted, and that's the only box they can check. That's really nice. So they only have restricted. Now, not all their money comes through the website, but at least all of that, I know it's 100% unrestricted. So yeah, if you can get away with that, that's great. But again, you're relying on contributions solely from church members and from boards that can be ambassadors saying they have this great program, give me this great program. Well, then you've just restricted those dollars. It's a catch-22. Love them, but hate them, because then we gotta track them, we gotta use them, and we gotta figure that all out.
Yeah, I mean, I would say we spend a lot of time talking from a development standpoint of how we balance, how we ask for money, you know, the most generic way possible, but still directed at the shelter, for instance. And that is by far what we spend the most audit time on.
Correct.
Is looking at how did that money come in and did we spend it appropriately?
Yes. And that's honestly, in any audit I do or any bookkeeping CFO work I do, that is the thing that's spent the most time on, is restrictions. Because over time, especially if they're old funds with lots of money in them, the paperwork tends not to be there. Well, you know, it's like, all right, how can I go back through these files and dig through it? At an organization I was at recently, give me those endowment files from 1955 and can we please go through these and figure out what this is? I mean, there's still a lot of stuff that is uncovered because nonprofits change, people die. I mean, stuff's really old, and nonprofits are living and breathing organizations that change continually, but have been around for a very long time. So that's why you have to have good policies, procedures for tracking and maintaining the records that are behind restricted funds. Yes, sir.
Quick question for Leanna, just ballpark, what percent of our funds are restricted?
Let me tell you. So right now, out of the $4.7 million we have in equity, 65,000 is restricted.
So it's
Not much.
pretty small,
Not
but and that's, I mean, I would have thought it was small, but I just,
It was much larger.
It was much
Okay.
larger.
It was
Yeah.
much larger, and there has been continuous effort the last 2 years to really get that stuff used, use it. For donor purposes.
Good job, finance committee then.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, I think when I started, that was probably $500,000-ish that we
There's been substantial
aggressively
strides.
gone back and looked at, okay, what was it really donated for? And how do we prove that we've spent that? Because the reality is, we probably had spent that and we hadn't tracked it well. And so we've put
And
a
from
lot
an
of work
audit
into that.
perspective, we're gonna default to leave it there. Unless you can tell me you spent it for the donor intended purposes, leave it there.
Mhm.
So, yeah. Other questions?
If you were put in charge of LUM today and had to make a blank decision on how much, what you call emergency savings for a family that's gonna sit there, what percentage of your total annual budget or amount would you put there?
I put 3 to 6 months of operating. You can find literature that says 6 months. You can find that says 3 months. Accreditations for a variety of organizations say at least 3 months. 3 months is my bare bones. So you take your operating budget and you divide that out. And so that's what I would have there. If you can get to 6, you're doing great.
Worth to 1/2.
So that's all debatable once you land off that 3-month mark. But anywhere from 3 to 6, some organizations try to have like a year. I think that's way too much. That's tying up resources that you do not need to tie up at all. Most nonprofits are at 3. They cannot sustain 6. There's just no way. Based on their funding streams, they just can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, the plus side of what you said earlier about the risk of us being mostly individual donor funded is that we're not relying on a huge grant that for
Very
a lot of
true.
organizations are
They can
losing,
go
right?
away.
Up
And
and
so
down, yep.
there's a plus and minus of that, but that's part of why, I mean, we currently have about 7.5 months, which to me, and we've had 7.5 months for several months, probably a year at this point. It's probably time to spend some of that money on serving our clients because we don't need that much. But if we were highly dependent on 1 or 2 donors or 1 or 2 large grantors, you probably need more in reserve because the risk of those going away, especially in today's environment, would be even larger.
Well, and a lot of it too goes to board reserves. You know, I've had organizations that over the years, they have gobbles of money in board reserves and they can't even tell me anymore what they're gonna use it for. So you have to look at that too. You've got donor funds, but then you also have board restricted funds, and what are those really for? And are you maintaining those and really using those? So I hate tying people's hands. So if I can get rid of all my donor restricted funds, I get rid of my board restricted funds too, because then you have a true operating budget that you can follow and really succeed the organization with growing programs. And yes, I think 3 months you do need a reserve. But above that, that's really up to the finance committee to propose to the board of what they think is the best thing. I had a board the other day, I was in a meeting and they were talking about this very issue. How much should we have? How much? So we started running calculations of, and you know, when they really looked at the numbers, 6 was way too much. That's tying up too much money and they were getting in the weeds on it. So again, that's another thing finance committee can really look at and say, all right, what are we comfortable with? You know, you got risk versus reward. Everything is a risk versus reward. Other questions? Quiet group. Quiet group.
So I know that is different for every organization, but you serve on multiple boards. If you were walking into a new board and what were the top 3 financial related things you'd want to see?
Do you have D&O insurance, directors and office of insurance, number 1. That's any board given, that's the first thing. I just was asked to be on one of the PEFQ boards and Purdue Federal Credit Union Board. And first words out of my mouth, do you have D&O? I need to see a copy of that policy, please. Not that they're a bad organization at all, they're great, but that is the first thing that comes out of my mouth.
The answer is yes.
Yep, the answer is yes, sir, I can tell you that. I would want to see a balance sheet. I'd want to see how well funded they are, meaning what do we have in cash reserves? So I'm not walking onto a board that has very little in cash and I'm seeing when I look clear at the balance sheet, they're treading almost into the restricted funds. That's my hot topic is restricted funds and cash. Where are you at? And then third, I would want to know where's the budget? Like, what's the budget of the organization? Are we meeting budget? Are we not meeting budget? Are we fiscally sound, I guess is where I would be. And if those things are not happening, I'm not going to enter on that board. And more so, it's kind of more important for me because I'm a CPA, so I shouldn't, go on a ship that's sinking kind of concept. So I do look very carefully at that to make sure. But again, there are some very small organizations that are financially sound and that, yes, are run wholeheartedly almost by volunteers. Those are boards like the Franciscan Foundation. I mean, it's a great organization, but it's mainly run by us volunteers, and it's great. But those are the 3 things I think going into a new board that I would. And then, of course, with 4 kids, I always say, what's the schedule of board meetings? Yeah. And who am I going to have to dump on someone else to pick up? So, other questions? All right.
Well, Kimberly, thank you. This was really wonderful.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And if you've got any other questions, you've got my contact information there at the bottom. Leanna knows where to find me. Marilyn knows where to find me.
Are you a Hoosier by birth, or is this?
No, I am not. I am from the East Coast. So if I talk a mile a minute, that's why I've never lost it.
I thought I recognized.
So yeah, I'm from New York originally. And then I moved to DC when I got out of college for my first job. And I worked for a large nonprofit. And did internal audit for them. So I was flying around the country to publishing houses and schools, and it was a nonprofit churches. They had churches and all kinds of institutions. And so my love and passion is honestly internal controls. My staff think I'm crazy, but internal controls. That's what we would write people up on and what we would improve. And then my husband, my soon-to-be husband, was out here going to Purdue getting his PhD. We haven't never left since. So, I have the steady job and he does the granting world at Purdue where, he's research funded. So I know that whole gamut of what does the money do? Yeah, so I became partner 13 years ago at Huth, and it's a great place to raise kids. I have kids, 4-year-old all the way to 17-year-old. So, I experience life all the time.
Great.
All right, thank you. Take care.
Yeah, thanks, Kimberly. Anything else we can? All right.
Thanks, anybody. Does anybody have any thoughts or comments?
She's
Really,
outstanding.
it's really good information.
She's great.
Cool.
Cool. Thank you.
Onward and upward. We missed the rain storm. Up north where I live, it was just pounding until a minute or
Thanks,
two.
Carl.
Yeah.